Good afternoon and welcome to the channel. Today I'd like to give you a review of the first 12 months of my ownership of the BMW R1250GS. Before I get on to the review of the bike, what I'd like to do is give you a quick introduction of myself. Quite a lot of people have now joined the channel and are subscribing to it and getting the notifications and commenting, which is superb and something that I would always encourage. So I thought I'd just give you a very quick rundown of how I've arrived at where I have with the BMW R1250GS. I started my working life in 1975 as a motorcycle mechanic, and I spent 8 years between 75 and 83 working on various motorcycles. I worked at Mike Wheeler Motorcycles in Witney in Oxfordshire in the UK, and still trading today, but alas no longer a main dealer. Those were the days when you could have multiple main dealerships, and we were a Yamaha and a Honda dealership. Initially, in the initial years, dealing with huge quantities of mopeds, because 16 you could only ride mopeds, so we had the glorious FS1Es and the SS50 Hondas. Right the way through to my latter days, as I left there working on some great superbikes such as the CBX 1000 6-cylinder Honda and the CX500 and the XS650s, XS500s, those types of machines. So I've had some experience in fixing motorcycles and putting stuff to motorcycles, but that was way back in 1983. I came back to motorcycles, of course, with a full motorcycle license, and I put an emphasis on the full because those were the days when actually obtaining a full motorcycle license was fairly simple. But I came back to motorcycling in August 2018, and I'd only actually ridden a motorcycle once very briefly in between that period. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I came back to motorcycling is that there's obviously a huge amount more traffic on the road, but I was pretty familiar with that because I've been driving a car obviously ever since, and I've done an awful lot of miles around the country. But also I noticed that the state of the UK roads had deteriorated quite considerably, and whilst I felt almost immediately I had that sixth sense of presuming that car was going to pull out or presuming that person was going to turn right, which we all have to have, and the cautious approach that we have to defensive riding to keep ourselves safe, I did notice you had to look that much further into the distance to be able to pick up the potholes in the road that were pretty much going to give you some angst when hitting them full on a motorcycle. The one thing I would say that maybe countermands those problems, however, is the fact that motorcycles have also, without doubt, come on tremendously. The brakes on the R1250GS are, as we know, superb. The handling of the machine is fantastic. The electronics on the machine that keep you safe or help to keep you safe are without question. So I suppose in a way one does counterbalance the other. So that's a little bit of my background and my return to motorcycling, which was actually in August of 2018, whereas the R1250GS was purchased on the 2nd of November 2018, and you'll notice there's a couple of 3 months gap in that. And part of the reason for that was I bought a second-hand, very new second-hand, only had a few hundred miles or a couple of thousand miles on, R1200GS from North Oxford garages, and after about 6 weeks I noticed while I was cleaning it the first time, funnily enough, that it had a dent in the front wheel. And so I emailed them appreciating that I'd had the bike for a decent amount of time and I could very easily have put that dent in the front wheel. But they accepted straight away. Latterly it was proven because I found some photographs from the test ride, but before I found that proof, they absolutely were straight up with it, said they would repair it, get it looked at, came and collected the bike from Oxford to Southampton, that's about 70 miles. And took it away. In the meantime, the 1250 was launched and I got a little bit of a jealousy angst with it. So I contacted the dealer and they gave me all of my money back on the R1250GS and managed to find me one of the first in the country R1250GS. TE variant, which some of you outside the UK won't have the TE variant, but the TE variant gives you all of the options that you would truly want to specify on the bike, and there's very little additionally that you can specify. And I'll go through that a little bit later in the video when we go through the spec of my bike and what the optional extras were. I purchased the bike, as I've said, on November the 2nd, 2018, and we're here now on October the 31st, Halloween actually, 2019, so a couple of days' time my bike will be technically 12 months old. And if you, as I say, want to cut to the end, it's been a fantastic bike, but it's also been a fantastic year. We've had a very good motorcycling season here in the United Kingdom. It's been very dry. We've had some cold temperatures, but there's hardly a month has gone by that I haven't managed to get the bike out at one point or another. And in fact, most of the time, certainly my daytime rides, my day out rides, have pretty well all been in the dry, and even not in the dry, certainly not in what anyone would class the wet. It's not quite the same as my experience on the Scotland trip that I did, but we'll cover that a little bit later. I've actually done technically 7,057 miles as the bike sits in the garage at the moment. And they've been 7,057 very enjoyable miles, numerous day outs. As I say, we've done a couple of what you may class as relatively major tours, certainly tours where we've stayed away. We did a trip to South Wales, sorry, not even to South Wales, a trip to Wales in spring, early spring, May bank holiday last year. That was on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, came back on the Sunday, and we travelled from Southampton to Monmouth through the Brecon Beacons to Aberystwyth, around Snowdonia and out to Shrewsbury, and then back down through the Cotswolds to Southampton. Again, very little rain. We did have a small amount of rain in the town of Brecon, but really that was about all the rain we encountered in that 4-day trip. And we've also done a 9-day trip around Scotland, and that relied upon us running from Southampton up to Carlisle in the first trip, 311 miles, from Carlisle to Inverness, which was another 260 some odd miles, so about 600 miles from home. And then we based ourselves in Inverness and took rides out from there. That helped us to avoid an awful lot of the rain, but of course we got an awful lot of rain going up to Carlisle. We got a considerable amount of rain from Carlisle to Inverness, and we certainly got some rain coming back from Inverness to Edinburgh and Edinburgh to York. But maybe we'll post that video a little bit later so that you can have a look at that tour. But it's been a fantastic series of rides, as I say, culminating in 7,057 miles. Now, what you'll know is from some of the videos that I've done, you'll see that I've fitted quite a number of accessories to the bike, and I'll go through those piecemeal and then give you maybe an idea of how they've worked out over this longer period of time. And you may find that I do put a few of them up here in the top corner so that you can review those videos as well if you've not already seen them. So the first thing that I did was fitted the Denali D4 lights and the sound bomb horn together with the SmartCan Denali Canbus controller, which is the same as the EasyCan, and that has worked out superbly well. I like the fact of being visible on a motorcycle. I don't believe that you should hide yourself, because that's what results in people not seeing you. The BMW has a very good front light anyway, and it's standard LED light, but having those two big Denali D4s lit up at the front and having the ability to let people know where I am with the sound bomb horn has given me a huge amount of confidence. So that was about the first fitment we made. We then fitted the engine bars. Now anybody who's had a boxer engine bike will sit on that bike, and as you look down to this array of horizontally opposed twin cylinders beneath you, you know that God forbid you should lay the bike down, certainly at speed or even statically, you know that those engine, certainly the camshaft cases and the cylinder heads stick out far further than you would want them to do, and they were going to be the first thing that rest against the ground. So it was again one of the first things I did was to put engine bars on there. I fitted the two in-off cameras, the K2 in-off camera setup, which comes with the two cameras. Again, there's a video on that, and that's been a good investment. It's very solidly made, and the great thing is it runs all the time. Now that I've never had to use, well, I say I've never had to use it in earnest, we'll go into that in a moment, but I've never really had to use it in an accident earnest, which is fantastic and I'm really grateful for. And I have actually used some of its footage, because no matter what you do when you're trying to do some recreational footage, you never seem to quite have the GoPro on at the right time, because the battery life on that is very small. So you can always go back to that, and whilst the footage on it is 1080p at 30 frames per second and it doesn't have any image stabilization, in post-production you can quite often at least make a reasonable thing of it, and at least you have captured that moment. And certainly I've been using the footage from those cameras extensively for the trip to Scotland for the 5 guys or the 4 guys that came with me, so the 5 of us will be able to share that. Certainly the back camera is a very nice camera angle to see when you're out with more than one person. Now, have I used it in earnest? Yes, I have. Of course, it has a GPS system, and with that GPS system also it tracks where you are and the speed, and you will see from this little clip that I unfortunately gained 3 penalty points for speeding, doing 59 in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. I would argue the 40-mile-an-hour zone was not really a 40-mile-an-hour zone, but by law it was, so I pay my money and I accept the punishment. But I was able to check the speed that I was doing with what the officer had told me I was doing, and unfortunately they completely correlated. So, all of that said, I fitted the mud sling and the fender extender, and they've worked out very well. They don't stop everything. A lot of people will tell you that they stop everything. They don't. I still get some mud and crud up the front of the engine casing, and I still get some up the side of the mud sling. Not so much up the side of the mud sling, but what I don't actually get is any crud and dirt over the rear suspension unit, which is the main reason that I wanted it to work. The fact that it splashes me is recoverable. The fact that it splashes probably what is a £1,000 complete unit is not acceptable. And so that's been a good purchase. And as you've seen as well, I bought the Givi tank bag. Now, a lot of people would say to you that, I don't know, does that look a bit strange? I think it looks a bit strange. It's like a little pimple on top of the fuel tank. But the great thing about it is you can hold all of your day requirements. So you can hold your sunglasses or your glasses. I wear both. You can put your visor cleaner in there. You can put a cleaning cloth for your visor in there. You can put your mobile phone in there. You can also run a wire out the back of it, and I have a little USB 4-way block in there, and that allows me to charge my mobile phone, charge my GoPro batteries, etc. on the go. And I also have a random little tied purse in there as well that just holds change, because quite often you need change, and my wallet. The great thing is you flick the catch, you lift it off, I rest it on the handlebars, and you can fill the fuel without having to unstrap anything or unvelcro anything, and then it just clips straight back into place. So those are the accessories that I bought, and they're all performing pretty well. I also would just like to give a special mention to, my bike has Vario panniers, the plastic adjustable widthways and adjustable height for the top box panniers, which we'll go into in a minute. My wife bought me for Christmas a set of BMW liners to go in there. Again, they weren't inexpensive. I think they were just under £230 for the set of 3, but they have been a major benefit, and probably about the best overall accessory I've had. The great thing about them is, because the Vario panniers on the GS1250 open sideways, you've either got to have everything packed in bags, and that's okay, or you've got to take your cases in a hotel with you, or it's going to fall out all over the car park. With those, you can pack in advance. You can pack them in the top box case or in the pannier inner cases. They're all fitted, so they fit exactly into the relevant case that they're intended for. And of course, when you turn up at any kind of hotel or any premises, you can just literally unclip your panniers, take the bags out, sling them over your shoulder or carry them in your hand, and they work out incredibly well. All in all, that's been one of the best accessories that I've bought. From a safety perspective, it would without doubt be the lights and the horns, and the way they work is also very superb. But certainly those inner bags for the Vario panniers shouldn't be taken away. So I just wanted to do a couple of things here, just a very short list in no particular order, what I love about the GS1250, and also a little list of what I don't like about the GS1250, or I think certainly could be improved. So the first thing with the GS1250, I owned a GS1200 for only about 6 weeks, but one of the things you actually notice without even putting it onto any kind of gauges is you do notice the smoothness of the Boxer engine. The Boxer engine has smoothed out in the 1250 variant. Now I can only put that down to the shift cam, or a mixture of shift cam and the fueling on the motorcycle. It has improved torque. You can always use more torque. I'm not sure you can use more power. I'm not sure you can use more speed, but you can always use more torque. Torque allows you to accelerate from gears that you were probably in the wrong one. It also allows you to pull yourself out of trouble should you need to with acceleration and the like. But certainly it feels just an all-round better performing motorcycle, able to pull from a very low revs, able to do that smoothly and throughout the rev range. So I would say certainly the engine has shown an improvement even over the 1200, but it certainly is a flagship positive for the R1250GS. The comfort of the machine, I've ridden the machine for 311 miles up to Carlisle, and frankly, apart from the weather started to turn, I could have done quite a little bit more as well. I have a standard bike, standard height seat, standard height suspension, standard height frame. All of those are adjustable now in the 1250, either factory purchased or adjustable in place. But the seat is adjustable 4 ways, so high at the front, low at the back, low at the front, high at the back, high and high, low and low. Now I always have my rider seat high at the front and low at the back, and that has an effect of rolling me away from the fuel tank, so not sloping me into the fuel tank, and it pushes my back against the GS emblem that is on the very front of the pillion seat, and that acts a little bit like a lumbar support. So I would say to you that probably it's about the most comfortable bike you could get, and I've ridden a few uncomfortable ones even for short periods of time, as some of you will have seen by my second service video, or a very similar R9T that I rented when I was away in Mallorca. Another feature of the 1250 I love is its road presence. I've ridden again a number of bikes. You will have seen my 1600 K1600 review, well not a review, ride when I was having the bike serviced, and I felt very low on that. I felt below the cars, I felt below the traffic. On the 1250 you very much feel at least level with the traffic, if not above the traffic. Certainly when it comes to cars and you're riding the motorcycle, 9 times out of 10 your head is above the roof of all of the cars around you. You're not as high as a van, you're not as high as a lorry. But again, you know, my riding now at my age is far more defensive, far more about making sure that I'm seen, and that presence is an important feature to me. The standard equipment on the machine, the standard safety equipment in particular on the machine is without question. The lean angle sensitive ABS, so most motorcycles, in fact I think all modern motorcycles now have ABS, have to have ABS I think to keep to the Euro standards, but not only does this have ABS, it has lean angle sensitive ABS, so if it senses that you are leaning the machine over, the ABS will be much more friendly, much lighter than it might be if you were sat upright. The traction control, the auto adjustable suspension, all of those things are safety aspects which help to keep the machine square and to keep you up and alive on the machine. Obviously there'll be a point at which gravity takes over and electronics give in. I guess that's probably physics, but it is a major feature of this bike which I'm very pleased to have. I think the TFT, which again is part of the equipment, but the TFT is about the best on the market. If you couple the TFT with the Nav6 system, you get just about every telemetric you could possibly want on the bike, and you get it in a very clear, very clean, very concise fashion. And you of course have the connectivity for phones and for music and for all of those things should you want it. Some people would claim that's not motorcycling, but should you want it over long distances, that too is available. But I would say the TFT is a very good size, very clear, both night and day riding. And then lastly, I suppose on my list of goods, and there's a lot of other goods, but on my main list of goods is the weather protection. I'm interested to know in the comments if anybody finds that it's not, or if anybody has changed the screen, because I've still got the standard screen. But with the screen in the fully up position, I do find that between the two horizontally opposed boxer cylinders, the fairings and the cowlings of the machine and the screen, coupled with the hand protectors, do give a very, very good weather and wind protection. When we drove up from Carlisle to Inverness, it was absolutely horizontal, throwing it down, and the two guys on sports bikes were wringing their gloves out when we got to, well, halfway actually, we got to the bottom of the Great Glen, whereas mine were damp, but they weren't exactly wringing wet. So again, I'm very impressed by that. So onto the list of stuff I don't like. Categorically, I don't like the horn. The horn on it is pathetic. And part of the reason that I fitted the sound bomb horn was the reason that I rode that once and in earnest had to use the horn. And the person I was using it to, in earnest, at speed, just did not hear that horn at all. So that I think is poor. There are some small fit and finish things that I just think a machine of that premium quality and that premium price should actually be correct. But it's things like the need for the mud sling and the fender extender. At the end of the day, there's a very expensive, certainly rear suspension unit, which has that tiny little blade. Now, BMW would argue that they've spent thousands of euro on trying to protect that and making sure that that's enough for it to be protected, but I don't believe it. And when you look at a mud sling and a fender extender, which are probably just a couple of euro or a couple of pounds in my case of plastic injection moulding, admittedly with a trademark and registered patented design, which BMW may have to pay for, you would think that those would be fitted as standard to the machine. I do feel that they're pretty essential items to keep the bike working correctly and to protect your investment. The lights on the TFT that don't work, that oil light, which again you'll have seen on my second service video, which should work, but you need to almost do a rain dance, wear your shoes on opposite feet, and do various stupidly ridiculous list of things to qualify for that coming on, I find to be poor. And also it sometimes puts in your mind that some of the other electronics don't work quite as well as you think they may be working in the background. There are also things like, it's an adventure bike, and I understand it should look rugged, a little bit like the old Land Rover Defender always looked very rugged, and people may well have said, well, it needed a bit more fit and finish and a bit more polish. But I think things like the ends of the frames where there are engine mounting bolts, for example, just leave those open as a trap for dirt and rust and corrosion over time, is something that could be very easily fixed. It's very easily fixed with a relatively expensive plug set, but you'd expect that to be fitted from standard. And the same with the rear hub, which has a hollow and not particularly nicely finished turning inside there, which you can buy a screw cap for and everything. But again, it's something I feel may well have been done as a factory fitted thing. But that was about all I could find really, and maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit, but those are some of my nice features and some of my things that just gripe me a little bit. But as a motorcycle, I truly do love it. Now, what I'd like to do is, just in conclusion, is to go through the cost of the bike and the cost of running the bike and exactly what the bike is. And I'll put these up gradually here so that we can see how these run out as totals. But it's a BMW R1250GS TE, and as I say to you, that's a machine which comes pretty much with a fully loaded aspect. So the Ride Mode Pro, all of those assist items are all pretty much fitted to it, and I have every option fitted to my bike, barring, I think they do a comfort seat. Well, my seat is perfectly comfortable, so I haven't actually had that done, but barring lowering the suspension or anything else, my bike has every single option. So the bike itself was, and this is all in British pounds, so sterling, so UK pounds. My bike was base price £16,062. The cosmic blue finish, which was £150 as an option, so that's one of the things you could buy as an optional extra, the dealer didn't charge me for because he found me the bike. It was one of the first in the country, and he threw in, not wishing to do me any down and certainly doing me a fantastic deal at North Oxford garages, they threw that in, so that was no cost to me. The emergency call assist, which is the SOS button on the right hand handlebar, £295. The factory alarm, £220. So those are the items which make my bike fully loaded. So the cosmic blue finish, the emergency call assist and the factory alarm. I also had the Vario luggage fitted, so the panniers and top box, they were £1,000. And my insurance company insisted that I have a tracker fitted because the bike was over £15,000. So I had a Data Tool Track King, 2 Ks in that, one word, tracker. That was £358.80 to purchase, and you'll see a little bit later there's an annual cost to that. So the total cost of my bike sat out on the showroom when I picked it up was £17,935.80. So onwards to the accessories that I fitted to it and the cost of those in this year. I fitted the Denali D4 lights, as you know, and a bracket to hold those on, £302. The Denali CanSmart Canbus controller was £227. The Hex Easy Can's a little cheaper. The Denali Sound Bomb horn and bracket was £57. The Mudsling and Avant fender extender I bought as a pair, £169. The Givey tank bag was £82.15. The Vario luggage liners, £237.50. As I say, a fantastic addition if you've got the Vario panniers. The engine bars were £298. That includes the strut across the middle. The Optimate DIN to USB adapter that I charge my accessories with was £25. The Inov safety cameras, the K2, Inov K2, £289.95. My grip buddies, which my daughter's bought me for Father's Day, I looked up, was £29. And the TFT screen protector, I have a screen protector on my phone, so I thought I'd have a screen protector on the TFT in case a stone fell from heaven or something. That was £5.50, a Speed Angel, and it's actually a matte one, not the shiny one, if you like, and I find it quite useful. So the total cost of my accessories as fitted to the bike today were £1,722.10. That doesn't include any of the clothing or accessories that I wear or brackets for cameras and that type of thing. So that's as my bike sits today. The accessories £1,722.10. How much does it cost me to run the bike? Well, you can take your pieces out of this because some of these will be different to what you would get charged. But in the UK here, we have to pay a road fund licence every year to tax the vehicle on the road. That was £88. The subscription for the tracker is £109 per year. So that goes in on the operational costs of the machine. I had a first service of £100. Now, ongoing, I would only ever have one service. This year, I've had to have two because of the mileage that I did. In fairness, I'd have had to have had one at 12 months anyway. So I had £100 first service at 671 miles. At 6,587 miles, I had a second service. That was £239.10. I had a front tyre at 6,486 miles at £97.80. I had a rear tyre at 2,410. Now that was in distress in as much as I had a 6-inch screw went into the back and the dealer couldn't fix it. So I had to have a tyre fitted, but the likelihood is by now I would probably have had to add a rear tyre anyway. So that was £163.81. My insurance, now here's a big difference. My insurance is £580 and twopence for the first year. That was brought about by the vehicle not being on the insurance list, so I could hardly get anyone to insure me, which ended up with me meaning I had to buy BMW's insurance. It's also to do with the fact that I had little motorcycling experience, although I have a lot of motorcycling experience. It's from some time ago, and of course I have no claims discount. My insurance for this year that I'm talking about here was £580 and 2p. My renewal for this year is 416, so you can see how much that's come down, even with my 3 penalty points that I got for speeding. So now the vehicle is actually listed on the insurance company websites, now it's in circulation and all of those things, my insurance would come down. So that's another area that you would need to adjust your anticipated cost on how much your insurance actually was. And then lastly, the fuel for 7,057 miles. The bike is doing somewhere near 54 miles to the gallon. And in the UK, a gallon of fuel, we buy it in litres, but converted, a gallon of fuel is £5.68. Now, we have a 8 pint 20 ounce gallon. So if you're in the United States, you only have a 8 pint 16 ounce pint gallon. So our gallon is slightly larger. So it's £5.68 a gallon, which means that approximately I've spent £742 and 29 pence on fuel. So my total running costs for this year are £2,120 and 2p. That is to do 7,057 miles. So to run the motorcycle has cost me £176.67 per month. But if I take that down to a cost per mile charge, it's costing me 30.04 pence per mile. So 30p per mile. Now, I've done a very quick calculation taking out the tracker subscription, which you may not have, taking out the first service, because you'll only ever have one service on the vehicle ongoing, and lowering the cost of insurance to a more realistic £400 per year. And that brings the overall cost down to £1,731 to do the same miles, or 24.53 pence, so about 25p a mile. But I think whatever you do, the bike is going to cost you about 25 to 30p per mile to run, and you should take that into account when you come to cost what you're doing with the motorcycle. So anyway, that's a very quick rundown of the first year of ownership with the BMW R1250GS TE. Some of you will have looked at the videos, so you've sort of lived this year with me, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the comments that you make on these videos, and if you've liked the video, I'd like it if you could give it a thumbs up. That really helps the ratings on YouTube and helps other people to find the channel. And obviously, if you're not already subscribed, it'd be fantastic to have you along. So if you'd like to hit the subscribe button and also the little bell notification button, so that every time I post, which isn't weekly, isn't daily, it's just when I feel I have something to say, then you'll get notification of the postings of those videos. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for getting this far. Thanks for viewing the channel, and we'll see you next time.